It's the post-processing phase, where a digital painting really steps aside from a traditional process. When an oil painter works on an image, their work is decidedly pre-planned. All the colors they'll decide ahead of time. They can save themselves the most amount of work by premeditating all the decisions. With digital, once all the strokes are down on the image, you actually get an interesting ability to try out different color palettes. And at this point, any trick that you could apply to a photo will work on these paintings. So you're using Photoshop's filters to do what Photoshop is primarily designed to do, which is modify entire images. So here you can see 3 examples where I've done extreme doctoring to change the color palette, change the contrast, and the overall value range of the image. So of course I'm not going to show you every possible filter that you could use, but I'll show you some standbys that I like to use to try out different effects on my images. The first effect I like to do is purely photographic. When you take a photo, the camera's lens has a way of creating natural darkening around the corners. It has to do with the way that the lens accepts light. It turns out that this effect also helps draw the user's attention to the center of the image. So I'll make a new layer, set it to a low opacity, and use the soft round brush to fake this effect. And I'll darken down the corners. And I'll do this a little more strongly on the bottom of the image, so I can pull the user's attention to the top where his face is. So if I hide this, you can see the difference. It traps the eye of the viewer on the center of the page. As I'm sure you're aware, color is oftentimes associated strongly with emotion. So an easy way to slightly change the sense of your painting is to just push the color palette in one direction. Now there's an easy way to do this. If you make a new layer, set it to color, which you remember from our painting, set the opacity down to maybe 20%. So this is a little more obvious on the video. I'm going to make mine 50%. And then fill it with the color you'd like to move towards. So if I want to go for a more golden sort of sepia tone, I'll take a halfway saturated orange and do a paint bucket fill. So here I've changed the tone of my entire image. Now it has a more antique feel. And all I did was add one layer. And if I were to turn this up to 100% opacity, you'd see it be very blown out and monochromatic. And that's not what I'm going for. If you're going to do this technique, it's important to keep it subtle. This also serves one extra great purpose, which is to add color unity. Even if you don't want to push your palette too far in one direction, having a 20% overlay can really help pull all the colors together. This ties back to that idea of throwing your paint around the canvas. It also helps achieve realism, because in the real world, especially in outdoor environments, light bounces everywhere. Even if there's a primary light source, it hits every surface and bounces onto those around it. So what you get is one color reflecting onto each color around it. And in doing so, there's this natural mixing happening. So if you can mix your palette to try and replicate this natural phenomenon, it'll end up looking more realistic in the long run. And as a rule of thumb, it's a really good idea to make sure you're saving your work. This way I can feel safe in any changes that I end up making, because I still have a safe copy of what it was I started with. Within your working image, there's another way to work what's called non-destructively. And these are called adjustment layers. So at the bottom of the layers palette, there's a circle divided into a black and white hemispheres. I'll click on this button and pick levels. You're probably familiar with levels. This is a way to adjust the overall contrast and value range of your image. So you can adjust these settings, move the black and white points, and change your midtones until you find an appearance that you like. This is a good final step to do because it helps make your image really punchy. If you do it too soon, you risk losing some details. Now, if you keep this an adjustment layer, you can toggle it on and off. And this ensures that you're not working destructively. You always have the ability to turn it off and return to what you started with. Same goes for this color overlay layer. This sort of post-processing is something that traditional painters would kill for, but it can also be a trap. You can work with filters and fiddle around with an image forever and never make any forward progress. It really works best if you have a different idea in mind. Say you wanted to try making the image look a little more sinister, or maybe you wanted to make it look a little more pleasing. Post-processing is a great time at the end of your process to give these different alternatives a try. Even if you only spend 5 minutes doing it, sometimes it'll be those last little tweaks that give you that palette that really sells the image.